Lots of sunlight today, although it is getting chilly. Still waiting for any sign of snow, I suppose. And what did I read today? How about this one? It's kind of interesting. With that launch of the new DJI Flip drone yesterday, one of the biggest drawbacks to DJI is their Geofence, where it stops people from being able to use the drone in areas where they deem you shouldn't be allowed to, even though it doesn't match local laws. Now, in some places, they actually got rid of it, so apparently they're going to get rid of it in the US too. So it's kind of interesting here. They posted, DJI updates Geo system in US consumer and enterprise drones. Apparently this should be in effect already too. It says, DJI, the world's leader in civil drones and creative camera technology, has announced updates to its geofencing system, which applies to most of its consumer and enterprise drone products in the United States. These changes will take effect starting from January 13th on both the DJI Fly and DJI Flight apps. The update follows similar changes implemented in the European Union last year. With this update, DJI's Fly and Pilot Flight app operators will see prior DJI geofencing datasets replaced to display official Federal Aviation Administration data. Areas previously defined as restricted zones, also known as no-fly zones, will be displayed as enhanced warning zones, aligning with the FAA's designated areas. In these zones, in-app alerts will notify operators flying near FAA-designated control airspace, placing control back in the hands of the drone operators in line with the regulatory principles of the operator bearing final responsibility. That's how it should be overall, in my opinion, when you buy these products. Otherwise, it's like that criticism, which I kind of agree with. It's almost like you're just renting their products overall when you buy them. Imagine that if you're using something like your car, for example. You bought it, but the manufacturer determines, nope, you're going to have to apply for permission to drive your car over certain, areas all the time for what they deem, for example, as, let's just say, a sensitive area. And with that, they say you basically need to update the app, and it should be in effect again in the US. Is anyone here in the US flying a DJI drone where they updated this and can confirm the Geofence is no longer there? And they go a bit into why they kind of invented this too, you could say. It says, when DJI first introduced the Geo system in 2013, consumer drones were still a relatively novel technology and formal drone flight rules and regulations were sparse. The geofencing system was created as a voluntary built-in safety feature to help foster responsible flight practices and prevent DJI drone operators from unintentionally flying in restricted airspace, such as around government buildings, airports, or prisons. Since then, global regulations and user awareness have evolved significantly, with a greater focus on geo-awareness and remote ID solutions, which makes detection and enforcement much easier. National aviation authorities, including the European Aviation Safety Authority in the EU, the UK Civil Aviation Authority, and the FAA in the US, have established comprehensive geographical zones for unmanned aircraft systems and enforced drone regulations. I think that's one of the irony I talked about too. They were one of the companies pushing things like their Geofence software and so forth, where you would think in a place like the US, they would say, okay, we're going to embrace this, but funny enough, they're the company that has been the most targeted in the US in terms of being banned and all that. But either way, I think this is good for people in the US. It hasn't rolled out everywhere to my knowledge, like here in Canada, but they should get rid of this in general because it doesn't match any of the local laws, especially like here, for example. Let's just say you're flying something, I would imagine, like that recent Flip drone. Because it's underweight, here you actually have more flexibility to fly it in various places, but because of their Geofence software, they deem it as, quote, illegal when it isn't. So yeah, overall, in my opinion, that's a good thing. Again, anybody in the US can verify this is actually working now. And what I thought, actually, in terms of, drone rules and enforcement, apparently here I was reading this article where somebody was saying how they want more to be done in terms of, restricting drones per se. It says Eastern Shore residents demand authorities do better with drone enforcement. Blair Davis says he was in the paddock of his West Lawrencetown NS farm several years ago when he first heard a buzzing noise and looked up to see a drone hovering overhead. The Canadian Armed Forces veteran lives with post-traumatic stress disorder, so the feeling of being watched was unnerving. He reported the incident to the RCMP and the police spoke to a neighbor. It didn't stop, it got worse, Davis said in an interview alongside his wife Kim. On countless occasions, the couple has recorded video of flashing lights in the night sky that appear to be drones. The ongoing appearances above their property have led them begging authorities for help. I'm actually curious about that in terms of, they say it was above their property. Was it literally like above their house, for example, or is it quite in a distance? It says, what else are these drones being used for at night other than to torment, torture, and stalk? Kim Davis said. I mean, just that quote alone, actually, that sounds kind of over-exaggerated. I mean, I fly the drone at night sometimes. I just go up and capture things. For example, like you guys seen the sunset, or at times there's the moon. I mean, what am I doing? I'm using it as a regular camera, correct? So I don't know, with that statement, it makes me sound like it is kind of like paranoia in many ways. It says, in Canada, drones weighing between 250 grams and 25 kilograms must be registered with Transport Canada. The operator also has to have a drone pilot certificate and must fly the drone within sight and no higher than 120 meters. Flying a drone in that size range near airports and other aircraft is prohibited without the right license and permissions. West Lawrencetown, about 25 kilometers east of Halifax, is also included in a no-fly zone around the Canadian Armed Forces Base in Shearwater, NS. While Transport Canada is responsible for laws and regulations dealing with drone use, police can charge operators with voyeurism, mischief, or creating a nuisance. Violations can result in fines or even jail time. Well, that's one of those examples I mentioned before in terms of over-the-top regulations. There's already rules in place where if someone is actually using it, let's just say in a bad way, like they say for voyeurism, they can already be punished. So you don't need, for example, even more crazy restrictive laws that just punish, for example, law-abiding people. But in general, in reading this, I don't know if the person really has that much of an argument unless, as I mentioned, there's actual videos of, let's just say, the drone going literally right above his property, kind of like what is implied, and it's going, I don't know, up and down, harassing and so forth. That's a little different, but if it's based on kind of paranoia, I don't know, just based on consistency in life, I don't think you could do much about that. Because for example, let's just say somebody had some kind of post-traumatic stress over some kind of animal attack. If all of a sudden they see that same animal, I don't know, like literally across their house and it wasn't doing anything, I don't think you could literally just say because that animal causes you post-traumatic stress, the authorities or whatever need to deal with it. Like, I'm just saying, like, let's just say it's a wild squirrel or something. I mean, I know there's people that are terrified of little animals like that, but I don't think you could do anything about that in general in that sense, correct? I mean, if anything, actually, in reading this article, and again, with that saying on how they feel there's no other reason for a drone to be out there at night other than to, let's just say, torment, torture, or stalk, that shows me these people are, I don't know, drinking the Kool-Aid too much, if that's the right way to say it, in terms of drone fear-mongering. Like there, I would ask, did they actually go out and talk to people who actually fly drones so they can kind of learn, okay, what do these people use it for? How is it like? Because, for example, in a lot of cases, those cameras are terrible in terms of, for example, zooming in at nighttime or whatever, if that's what you're worried about in terms of voyeurism and all that. So you could actually see for yourself and see if that's the case or not. Because in many ways, people are just ignorant about the topic. They just rely on what they see in the news, the movies, the most crazy examples, versus, again, you need to take the time to actually try to learn about it yourself first before making a conclusion like that, in my opinion anyways. Unfortunately, this is a mainstream media source too, so I wouldn't be surprised, like they're always just talking to, let's just say, a commercial operator saying this and that is dangerous and all that, versus actually talking to regular average individuals and how they use it every day. In my opinion, that's an issue, and people need to take the time to really learn about this stuff. Alright, see you guys later.